Well, they let us keep doing this, huh?
Let's talk tech.
Welcome to News.exe, the best technology-centric news show on the Burk IT YouTube channel, guaranteed. I'm Michael Trotter-Lawson.
And I'm Noah Parker. This week we discuss social media, why it is so incredibly important today, and how it will be impossible to control. But first, it's time for notable news you need to know.
This week will be a little different, as we'll be catching up on all the major events we missed during the break. Starting with the latest on Elon Musk's eternal war with California legislature. On Thanksgiving of last year, a Tesla with full self-driving software was reportedly responsible for causing an 8-car crash in San Francisco. This was one of many factors leading to a new California law prohibiting California dealers and manufacturers from deceptively naming or marketing a car as self-driving if it's only equipped with partial automation features that still require human drivers to pay attention to handle driving. Democratic State Senator Lena Gonzalez is the bill's sponsor, and she claims the bill, quote, increases consumer safety by requiring dealers and manufacturers that sell new passenger vehicles equipped with a semi-autonomous driving assistance feature to give a clear description of the functions and limitations of those features, end quote. Tesla is fighting the bill, arguing that it already makes Tesla buyers fully aware of the full self-driving software's limitations. Of course, that's why the software is called full self-driving instead of really extra full self-driving for real this time. That update is scheduled for later this year.
Work from home is here to stay, and that is not great news for many of our nation's cities. Many businesses that managed to weather the COVID-19 pandemic discovered that much of their workforce preferred working from home, and simultaneously, those employees managed to be just as productive doing so, all while watching Netflix on the couch in their pajamas. This has caused many companies to essentially abandon their large corporate offices that have historically dominated the urban centers of America. For example, financial firms in New York City reported that only 56% of their employees were in the office on a typical day in September. With so much unused office space, companies are downsizing their offices, significantly cutting down foot traffic throughout many metro areas as people no longer commute into the city. The combination of downsizing offices and employees staying out of the cities are set to result in a massive loss of tax revenue, as they're losing property taxes from the offices and the sales tax from the office workers. Now, many U.S. cities are scrambling to replace the vacated office spaces with living spaces. However, converting office buildings into housing is easier said than done. Commercial buildings tend to have far fewer bathrooms and kitchens than residential ones require, which means that any conversion calls for reconstructing a tower's plumbing and electrical systems.
The password management provider LastPass is facing massive backlash and a class action lawsuit for failing to prevent a staggering data breach that occurred last year. LastPass has over 30 million users, and this breach has led to the hacker acquiring the personal data and encrypted passwords of nearly every one of them. Fortunately, the hacker does not have the user's master password, and without that, the other passwords remain safe. However, that still means that the hacker only has to guess a single password to access all the others under that user's account. Considering that LastPass is a paid service, it'd be as safe and a lot cheaper to just use Excited Wolverine, !42069 for all your passwords. At this point, we would like to acknowledge that we did list LastPass as an example while encouraging the use of password managers back in our episode on identity and access management. While we absolutely stand by the advice to use a password manager, LastPass has acted irresponsibly by attempting to conceal the extent of their breach when they first discovered it. and they have consistently downplayed its danger and significance. As a result, we have removed any mention of the company in that episode, and if you use or have used LastPass, we sincerely urge you to consider switching to a new password manager.
In artificial intelligence news, Michael's still on the show. Also, the creators of Stable Diffusion have poked the bear that is Getty Images. You have certainly seen many Getty Images online, as they are one of the most successful and prominent stock photography services in the world. They famously all share this watermark, one that has been replicated by Stable Diffusion in this photo. And those who frequently use this AI art tool can attest to how frequently this happens. Now, the stock photo giant is suing Stability AI, the company behind Stable Diffusion, for copyright violation. Getty CEO Craig Peters stated the reason behind the suit is, quote, Stability AI's use of intellectual property of others, absent permission or consideration, to build a commercial offering of their own financial benefit. The company made no outreach to Getty Images to utilize our contributors' material, so we're taking an action to protect our and our contributors' intellectual property rights, end quote. Peters went on to say, I think there are ways of building generative models that respect intellectual property. I equate this to Napster and Spotify. Spotify negotiated with intellectual property rights holders, labels, and artists to create a service, end quote.
Not everyone is excited about the influx of electric vehicles in the United States, as Wyoming is the first state to draw up legislation banning the sale of electric vehicles. 6 Wyoming state legislators sponsored this bill, which calls for phasing out the sale of electric vehicles by 2035, with the goal of, quote, ensuring the stability of Wyoming's oil and gas industry, and will help preserve the country's critical minerals for vital purposes, end quote. The bill notes oil and gas production are essential industries in the state, and that growth of electric vehicles would have disastrous impacts on its economy. Wyoming is lacking in electric vehicle charging stations, a fact lawmakers say make the use of electric vehicles impractical in their state. It is worth noting that 15 other states have similar legislation in the works, except they are attempting to phase out gas-powered vehicle sales in their respective states. Wyoming is clearly aware of their uniqueness, as the bill, in its final section, requires copies to be sent to, quote, the President, each member of Wyoming's congressional delegation, the Vice President, the Speaker of the House, the Governor of Wyoming, and the Governor of California. Let me reiterate that. The Wyoming State Legislature is looking to send a copy of this bill to California Governor Gavin Newsom in what can only be described as an extreme act of bureaucratic pettiness.
A Russian-backed hacking group has ramped up its attacks on the energy sector, as a recent report revealed that they attempted to hack a large petroleum refining company located in an unspecified NATO country. Good thing they were Russian, because if they had taken their time and planned, things could have ended differently. This attack was unsuccessful. However, it is one of many, as the Kremlin attempts to target energy companies in countries opposing Russia's war in Ukraine. National Security Agency Cyber Director Rob Joyce said he was concerned about significant cyber attacks from Russia, stating, quote, I would not encourage anyone to be complacent or be unconcerned about the threats to the energy sector globally, end quote. This Russian hacking group has a variety of monikers, such as Trident Ursa, Gameradin, Primitive Bear, and Shuckworm, and they reportedly use multiple ways to conceal the IP addresses and other signatures of its infrastructure. While their methods are neither complex nor novel, they make up for it with sheer persistence and determination, and cybersecurity experts view them as a significant threat to Ukraine and its allies.
That's all for today's notable news you need to know, which means it's almost time for our main story. But first, this.
Onion rings are just vegetable donuts.
Asterisk. Magician sawing a woman in half. Asterisk. Me, under my breath. Leave her alone.
Not everyone who wears glasses is a superhero in disguise. If I were a superhero, I'd still need my glasses, because without them, I'd probably fly into a skyscraper.
NFL fields are actually 100 yards long, not 50. The thing is, they paint labels on the field that go up to 50, but after that it just comes back down. Most football fans come to this realization when they're around 35 years old, and once they do, they become a real fan.
This came to me in a fever dream. Never thought I'd fight side by side with an elf. What about side by side with a whale? I, Belugalus. I could do that.
Just nearly crashed my car because I turned on NPR and they were playing Aquatic Ambiance from Donkey Kong Country as just some random segment music.
3,866.
I never watched The First of Us. Am I going to be totally lost?
Waka.
Patrick Mahomes could poop his pants on live TV, and Chris Collinsworth would say, Mahomes, man, no one poops like him. Phenomenal poop. Wait until you see what he does next. This man will wipe sidearm. Today, our main story is about social media. Usually we start these segments off with a definition and broad explanation of what we're discussing today. But you know what social media is. You're currently on YouTube, a social media platform that is simultaneously the second most popular search engine in the world, behind its big brother under Alphabet, Google. Google, at least according to some reports, is no longer the most popular website in the world. They were recently overtaken by TikTok, the Chinese social media juggernaut that has exploded in popularity in the last few years. Also, while not nearly as popular as TikTok today, Twitter has been dominating headlines for the past few months for a variety of reasons. There are so many social media sites and apps these days that it would be impossible to cover them all in this show. So we are going to focus on Twitter and TikTok, arguably the two most relevant and infamous social media companies today. Still, better to be infamous than to be Google+, or Vine, or MySpace, or Friendster, or Yik Yak, or...
Let's start with the older company first, Twitter. Twitter was founded in 2006 by Jack Dorsey, Noah Glass, Biz Stone, and Evan Williams, with the company gaining significant popularity and success following a highly successful integration at South by Southwest Interactive in 2007. Twitter is well known as a primarily text-based service with a character limit of 280, though it was famously 140 characters for most of its lifetime. In addition, Twitter popularized the use of hashtags, or the practice of essentially categorizing posts using a hashtag, aka #, followed by a word or acronym or phrase. Over the last 15 years, Twitter steadily grew into one of the world's most popular social media networks, though it is notably much less popular than other networks like Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Hashtag Twitter is dying.
With that in mind, why has Twitter dominated so many headlines over the last year? The short answer is Elon Musk, but it is more complicated than one man's overpriced vanity project. Twitter had garnered a reputation for being the internet's town square, even though only a very small minority of users on Twitter send the vast majority of tweets. Regardless, Twitter was, and still is to a point, a place where anyone in the world could theoretically reach anyone else. Unlike YouTube and TikTok, one didn't have to film themselves, or in the case of Instagram, take photos of themselves to be known and heard of on the platform. Anyone could write an inexplicably viral tweet, gaining hundreds of thousands of followers overnight. However, you were not and are not allowed to say just anything and everything on Twitter. For example, while Elon Musk can send out a tweet saying, "Next, I'm buying Coca-Cola to put the cocaine back in," I couldn't write a tweet with an Elon Musk spoof account saying, "Next, I'm buying Sherwin-Williams to put the lead back in."
Content moderation is a touchy subject for many today. For example, if I were to say, Michael would have to bleep that out when he edits this video. But here in the United States, all citizens have freedom of speech, meaning they are allowed to say anything they want to, short of inciting violence, starting a panic, and a few other niche cases. This freedom does not extend to Twitter or any other social network, as they are private companies with their own freedom to determine what content appears on their platforms according to their individual guidelines and values. For people who do not agree with those values, this can be frustrating. Elon Musk was one of the most vocal critics of Twitter's moderation policy, and the preservation of freedom of speech was supposedly one of the chief motivators behind Musk's acquisition of the social network. But as they say, if you don't like the rules of the game, you should have acquired the game company instead of just playing it.
We could likely fill an entire episode just with the debacle of Musk's troubled purchase of Twitter. But we covered most of the major events in various notable news segments in past episodes. All you need to know for this story is that Musk severely overpaid for Twitter, and his drastic overevaluation of the company's value has led to a plethora of financial problems for Twitter today. Most of those issues, however, remain somewhat behind the scenes. What most news outlets are focused on are the many changes to the service itself. The most infamous is likely Musk's attempt to monetize verification, with users briefly gaining the ability to purchase the blue check mark next to their profile that typically distinguishes public figures or brands from parody accounts or imitators. The predictable result was a plethora of parody accounts and imitators creating havoc by making seemingly official accounts tweeting all sorts of problematic things, like this supposedly Nintendo America tweet with Mario flipping the bird, and this tweet from pharmaceutical company Eli Lilly announcing that insulin would now be free. Of course, the only thing less realistic than a beloved icon like Mario giving fans the middle finger is a pharmaceutical company doing anything altruistic.
Obviously, this blue checkmark chaos did not last long, but that change, among others, has shattered companies' trust in Twitter, causing nearly every major company to pull advertising off the platform, with some even removing their company's presence entirely. Twitter is frankly a dumpster fire right now, and it is pulling Tesla down with it, as Musk essentially tied the company's fates together like a cinder block to a pirate's ankles. Elon Musk has lost $182 billion in net worth over the last year, which is more than the total net worth of Jeff Bezos. Tesla stockholders are furious with Musk for sacrificing Tesla to gain Twitter, and despite many attempts to ban and silence critics of his on Twitter, a poll of users that Musk posted requested that he step down as CEO of Twitter, something he has said he would honor. By all accounts, Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter was one of the worst business acquisitions of all time. This leaves us with the question, what was he thinking?
It is not possible to know the thought process of another person, and all outside of observers' best guesses at Musk's intentions are somewhat skewed by their personal view of him. He is seen as a tech genius entrepreneur destined to solve all the world's problems by some, while others view him as an idiot who has stumbled onto some extremely lucky investments that he was only able to make because of his dad's apartheid emerald mine money. The truth is undoubtedly somewhere in the middle, but if you are leaning towards that tech genius view, you may be disappointed by the rest of this story. Most of Elon Musk's business career is characterized by him pumping large quantities of money into ideas that he supports, though they could rarely be seen as original ideas. X.com was predated by PayPal. Tesla was not the first electric car manufacturer. SpaceX is just the private furthering of NASA's goals. And sorry, not sorry, the Boring Company is just trains, but worse. Quick rant here. But imagine spending millions of dollars to put in a one-lane road underground where only Teslas are allowed to drive, except they aren't even the users' Teslas. These cars are not supposed to leave the tunnel system. Plus, they can only go about 30 miles per hour safely. And even though the whole point was to avoid traffic, there are still traffic jams in these tunnels. Did I mention the fact that only Model 3s and Model Xs are in this tunnel? So each vehicle is just a normal car that can hold like 4 to 6 people. What if instead we had a long tube-shaped vehicle capable of transporting hundreds of people all at the same time in the same trip? Congratulations, we've just rediscovered a subway system. Look, at his best, Musk bankrolls the ideas and inventions of people who are smarter than him. But Twitter is a sterling example of him at his absolute worst.
We tend to avoid talking politics on this show. We want to stick with simple, objective fact reporting. However, we must stress that Musk's acquisition only really makes sense from a perspective of disagreeing about the content moderation policies that Twitter had in place. And most of those disagreements happen to center around the moderation of almost exclusively right-wing voices on Twitter. There were undeniably some liberal leanings in what Twitter decided to restrict and not restrict on their platforms. However, pre-Musk Twitter had a team of individuals who debated the merit of whether certain tweets and accounts should be allowed or not. Elon Musk has reduced that team down to a single individual, himself, and there's no I in team, or in Elon Musk. The sad fact of the matter is that Musk's Twitter is not any closer to free speech than the old Twitter was. It is just content moderation with the goal of propping up a single multi-billionaire's ego. If you have paid any attention to the length of this video, you'll notice that we're almost done and have barely mentioned TikTok. That's because, surprise! Whee, look, confetti, wow. This is actually our first ever 2-part main story. So come back in a couple weeks to hear all about China's social media chokehold on our nation.
That's our show today. Come back in 2 weeks to keep updated on the most vital technology news, and consider checking out our blog and newsletter at burkitc.com.
And thanks for watching.
If you enjoyed the video, press like, and if you want to see more, subscribe to our channel.